everybody. Today we have with us a very special guest, and his name is Aminieli Hopson. Hello, Aminieli. How are you doing today?
Hi, Bhagyashree. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good too. It's evening time, and I'm really excited for our fourth episode of Empowering Convos. This is the fourth one that we are having, and I think that this is the best way to spend my evening having a conversation with someone as inspiring as you. So tell me, what do you do, and are you a student, and where are you from?
Well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I too find you very inspiring. So thank you so much for this conversation. Um, my name is Aminieli Hopson, like Bhagyashree just said, and I'm currently a student in the Northeast section of the USA. Currently here in Connecticut, it's 7:50, so it's a little early for me, but doing pretty good. I'm in my last year of high school, so almost exam season, so I'm getting ready. Good luck to those with exams too.
So I'm in my senior year two of high school, and it is pretty stressful trying to navigate through college applications and final year exams, as well as the pandemic. So, everybody, today's topic of our empowering conversation is creating communities during the pandemic. So, Aminieli, why did you choose this topic? Out of everything, why did you choose this topic, creating communities in the pandemic? By the way, it's a really good topic, I must.
Thank you. And so during the pandemic, my school had gone into quarantine. So this is relatively March of 2019. During that time period over the summer, as I'm sure most people are aware, there were some instances of racial injustices that happened in America. Um, Specifically with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. And some of those instances created a heightened awareness in the USA about the racial injustices that are still happening and still present in many communities today, including education spaces, like public community spaces, and workspaces, et cetera, et cetera. And so it really caused us to really reflect and go about certain topics such as race and identity with a bit more of a focus on inclusivity and empathy too as well. And so during after the summer, um, during November 2020, I was asked by my principal, uh, and when sorry, and when he came to me, he had talked about how there were some other students on campus, specifically like students of color, who had some some experiences along those instances of like racial injustices in education and education inequalities and not being treated fairly in the classrooms. For example, with some like microaggressions and things like that. And so I took it upon myself to create a space on campus that has not been done before at our school called the Cultural Awareness Brigade. And essentially what the Cultural Awareness Brigade is a safe, supportive space that not only unites but also advocates for students of historically underrepresented groups on campus, such as students of color and students of different religious backgrounds too as well. Um, in doing so, we've created some it was hard during the pandemic, but thankfully we've been able to create some school-wide events such as a school-wide Kahoot on different holidays such as Diwali, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas to really educate people on some of the different holidays that people celebrate at our school, as well as having conversations on, okay, how is race and the history of racism taught in schools? How is colonization spoken about in schools? You know, that history tends to be whitewashed sometimes. And so, well, most of the time, actually, not sometimes, but most of the time. And so we really talked about how can we include history of Latin American countries, history of African countries, history of East and South Asian countries, and West Asian countries, and a lot more of a global perspective, as well as even more history on slavery, even more history on what was done for civil rights movement, et cetera, et cetera. And so really creating a space on campus and the community that we needed. Sorry, that was a bit of a long answer, but I hope that that answers your question.
Oh, definitely. That just perfectly answers my question. Thinking about my journey of creating community and during this pandemic, it all comes
Mhm.
down to the onset of the pandemic. It was in the month of March
Yeah,
of 2020 when there was this great feeling of isolation. So
exactly.
I come from India. So here there is a system of secondary school and junior college. So the first 10 years of your high school are in a secondary school, and then you go to a junior college for your 11th and 12th year of high school. So I just passed out of my secondary school, and it was time for vacation, and the pandemic came in, and I wasn't even in a junior college. So
Oh,
I felt quite alienated with my school community because practically I wasn't neither connected to my secondary school and nor was I in a junior college. And I felt very isolated because coming from a city which is the most populated city in my country, coming from Mumbai, and seeing the streets completely isolated, it was a very different, unique experience and something which was hard to cope with. So at that time, I had this feeling this pandemic is happening and it is hard
mhm.
to cope with it. And there is something which I want to do, even if I
Exactly.
would be in high school. And there would be
Exactly.
so many other students like me who also want to do something to get over their feeling of doing something to unite people and to have conversations and to be empowered by just being in a community. So I wanted to create
Exactly.
that space where young people could realize that they had a voice and and they could do something to actually work on the issues that they are passionate about. Because even with the pandemic, our world issues aren't going anywhere away. Climate change is still happening.
Hmm.
Mental health is still getting deteriorated, even if there's a
Exactly.
pandemic and even if people are isolated. So it was it was imperative to actually work on this issue. So that's why I started with Empower, and then we grew into a community. Now I have around 54 team members and 28 ambassadors, and we have quite a good online presence too. And I think the best part of having a community is that even in times like these, when you feel very isolated, you still feel connected to people your age when you actually share your ideas and you are there to stand with each other. Even though you are in a seemingly professional space, you are always there to support each other because we are of the same age and we
Yes.
are connected
Exactly.
with our passion. So that is
Exactly.
why I wanted to start a community. So, Aminali, how has creating your community for inclusivity and ensuring diversity has changed you as a person? Like obviously I do not expect like a tremendous change in in you as a person, but has it impacted you personally while working in the project?
I would definitely say being more attuned with myself, really. Like you said, with the isolation and things like that, and really understanding, hey, there are still some things, no matter if there's a pandemic or not, there's still some things that we should pay attention to. And so, really paying attention to that and really staying in tune. I think I'm definitely more empathetic now, and I'm definitely more sort of conscious, really, of where I'm going and who I'm interacting with and how I'm specifically how I'm interacting with them, making sure that every like conversation is fruitful and um, yeah, that's really it.
So that's good. Like it has made you more reflective and more critical as a person, which is definitely a good quality to gain from any project.
Mhm.
So, have you held a leadership position in your community? Like since you have started, have you been a leader? And if you have held a leading position in your community, What have been the greatest lessons that leadership has taught you? I will elaborate on my own lessons later on, but I want to know your answer about the same.
Yes, I'm looking forward to yours. For me personally, it's definitely to I would break it down into like 5 steps, 5 key areas. Definitely connecting with yourself for sure, making sure that you, number one, are doing good, and then really dreaming, as cliche as it sounds, dreaming of the end result, dreaming of each step, and and then networking too as well, making sure that everybody's on the same page, making sure that you're open to new people, new possibilities, and then tapping into some of those networks, tapping into people's passions. If there are people who are more art inclined, maybe they can work on the advertisements, or if there are people who are more like history and et cetera, maybe they can work more on educational programming, or just like tapping in like that, and then embracing whatever happens, no matter what. There's always room to either grow and learn, or room to celebrate, because it's important to celebrate the little successes in each and everything.
Oh, that's really great. I really like the point where you mentioned that helping people to tap into their passions and giving them an opportunity to excel. I like being like having held a leadership position at my own organization, Empower. One of the things which I feel really gratified for is that I am capable of creating a platform where I can give others the opportunity to experiment with their own passions, with their own abilities, and to help and to see themselves grow. It's really cool to see that you have the ability to give others a chance and to see them excel. Because now when I look back at the journey, some people who had joined Empower around 6 months ago or 1 year ago, it was very different seeing them in the foundation stage where they were quite amateur, but now they have actually grown into this, they've blossomed into this community, and they have been discovering their own talents. And while I reflect on my own leadership positions, there are many things which leadership has actually taught me, and I'm still learning. It's actually a work in progress. So
Same here.
a few things which I can reflect on is that in the beginning I used to believe that I must do everything, and I really lacked in the power of delegating task. And I didn't know, like I didn't realize the tremendous power that hearing out someone else's ideas and giving them a chance to actually put their ideas and opinions forward without having a sense of fear from you. I didn't realize that there was tremendous power in that. So earlier I used to do everything on my own, and it was getting quite hectic and stressful to do editing, designing, administration, publishing, writing, marketing, and networking all at the same time. It was definitely draining, and it was like one person's ideas coming into the platform. Although there were team members who were working, they were just completing the task. They were not putting their ideas forward on the plate. So I met these different people, like my team members, and some of them who were brave enough to tell me that you do not have to do it all alone. You have to give others the opportunity to actually excel. So at that time, I tried giving a chance to others to feel safe in expressing their opinions to me. Even though I held a leadership position, they should feel quite safe to disagree with me and to point out my own flaws, which might later affect the growth of Empower. Because I cannot always be right. No one can always be right.
Exactly.
And I started providing the safe space for them where they could actually put their opinions forward that no, this is wrong. We can give you a better idea, and slowly I gave them an opportunity to give workshops. Like they could give workshops to us, including me, on design or marketing, and then we all grew in this space. And I met people, and they also taught me a few things like how work needs to be divided into different departments and how work needs to be delegated. And it was quite nice seeing how magical it is that life gives you this whole bunch of people who come in your life and who also go at some point in time, but they give you so much. Like even also leadership is not always fun. It can also get exhausting. Leading a community can get exhausting. Like
Yes.
sometimes you have to hear harsh criticisms, or sometimes when people don't perform as per your expectation, it hurts. And you're
It
not
does.
paying them, they're volunteers. So
Mhm.
you cannot I feel getting my point. Like you can criticize them, but assertively, of course. But you cannot do
Exactly.
something beyond that to actually get them to work or to inspire something in them. So leadership can also get exhausting, and it has taught me that there can be so many different types of people. Someone who is too assertive, someone who is too critical, someone who is too enthusiastic, someone who is not enthusiastic at all, someone who is just nodding, someone who is just being a sycophant, and someone who is just flattering you and just doing the task and not going beyond that, beyond those finite lines.
Exactly.
There's so many people who have whom I have been whom I have come in contact through this community, and I think that's the most beautiful part of having a community, that you learn to deal with different types of people.
Oh, that's amazing. And I 100% agree with you on so many levels. It is so important to really learn how to delegate tasks because it can get draining. It really can. And also, people's ideas sometimes, like, you can be, like, not necessarily surprised, but like some people may be thinking of ways and they're completely like so like not 360, but like 180 towards your idea. And it's crazy. But one of my questions for you, I hope I can ask you questions if that's all right.
Definitely, that's a two-way
Um,
conversation.
awesome. What were some of the things that sort of led you to be a leader or feel confident enough to be a leader and lead in your community? If that makes sense.
Oh, that's a very good question. So when I talk about leadership, I think like
Mhm.
the first aspect, I think it came not naturally, but it was also quite, I wouldn't say forced, but there was no other option because I started Empower. So obviously I had to lead it and couldn't expect someone else to come and lead in my own organization. So I had
Awesome.
to do the leading job, quite literally. But then, like being a leader and being like trying to navigate through leadership skills, because when you're in high school you don't get a leadership course, or you have a course in mathematics, science, English, but you don't have a leadership course or an entrepreneurship course. So it was quite like experimenting and having a lot of trials with your own skills, and there's a lot of anxiety that comes with leadership, or just trying out anything for the first time. And since you are leading something, or you're being a mentor to someone, or be it your team members, or being a mentor to a specific person, it is it is a task that involves responsibility, because you do
Mhm.
not want to influence or guide people the wrong way. You
Yeah.
like when you're leading something, you have to make sure that your own perspectives, your own thoughts are going in the right direction, and you're doing your own research before
Mhm.
actually influencing, guiding, or just mentoring someone, or just even doing the leading job. Because
Mhm.
people who are working or interning at Empower, or just simply at any other organization, they are coming in there for gaining a sort of experience which they remember later in their lifetime. And as a leader, like it is a talk about like morals and ethics. Like when someone is coming in your organization, be it like whether they are doing a fruitful job at it, or whether they are good at it, or they're just simply not doing anything at all, it is your job as a leader to guide them the right way and to leave them with an experience which, and that it takes something away from the program. Like, even though
Wow.
someone who is genuinely interested or not, like for example, when we attend any summer program or just any course, be it like, oh, I can see that smile, like yes, the
YYGS, gotta plug
YYGS.
that in. Mhm.
Exactly. So when we attended YYGS, the people who were actually doing the leading job, who were teaching us, most of them, or at least I can say all of them, were trying to make sure that we were taking something away from the community and we were taking away something from the experience. And definitely that has helped me a lot as a person. And I want the people who are working at my organization to have a similar experience, such that at the end of the day, they want to leave with the feeling that Empower was the best thing that ever happened to them. I think that's the best gift that someone can ever give me. That's the best task that any member can accomplish. And that's the biggest reward for me. Now, I remember there are like two different types of members who, like, now I have around 54 members. And as I say, people come and go. Team members, they come and go. So many have come in and they have also left. And again, new members have come in. And as a leader, it's also important to recognize someone else's potential. When you're like, I'm not the HR in my organization, thankfully, but I was
Yeah.
before. But when you're, I wouldn't say hiring because we aren't paying anyone, but when you're selecting people, it is important that you see the potential in someone before they see in themselves. Because most of the
Yes.
times I wouldn't know what I'm good at, but perhaps you would be able to tell me that I am good at something, or you would be able to see that knack or that spark in me, and then you would be able to guide me as a leader.
I agree.
And I think as a
Yes.
leader, it is important to see that knack in your team member and to lead them and to help them develop it so that they can use it in their later lives. Because I know they're not going to stay with them for like, if they stay for their rest of life, it would be great. But these are the high school kids and just like us, and they would intern and some would stay for 1 year, 2 year, or a few months or perhaps 5 years. But later on they would be doing jobs or they would be starting their own projects, so they would want to utilize that experience later in their lives, and they want to remember that they had this opportunity which they enjoyed, and it was not just some monotonous piece of work which they had to do just for getting a LOR. So I think this is
Wow.
something which I want to do as a leader and accomplish as a
That's
leader.
amazing. I really, really like the way that you took what you took from YYGS and other experiences too as well, and you wanted to bring that and bring that sense of like what I'm creating. I hope other people can have their own takeaways, and I think that's something that's really so important, especially like when I think about what I'm doing because it's in my school. Like obviously, like people have takeaways from school and things like that, and so I also think that that's just so necessary and so important to think about and really identifying. And I didn't even realize too that thing about identifying knacks and potentials and sparks, and that's so key to doing, especially when really creating it, because even though it does stem from the individual and creating the environment that you need at all healthy, those emotionally strong levels and things like that, it sometimes we need those reminders. Sometimes we really do, and it's those reminders from other people that really that can really make that huge difference.
And also, like now when you mentioned this, creating an emotionally strong environment, I think that's the topmost priority of any leader in this age. Like when people are so mentally deprived of their well-being and they're already exhausted with so many other things. And and as a leader, you do not want to create a space which further deteriorates their mental well-being, but rather create a space where they feel accepted and where they feel rejuvenated and they feel fresh to to just work out their own abilities and to see their capabilities. Like I know, like a few months ago, I get these bouts of anxiety and panic where I feel like, oh, we are not doing enough. I'm not doing enough as a leader. Because as I say, it's a work in progress. There are moments when I feel like things could be done better as a leader. So there was this feeling which came to me that okay, we are in a professional space. My
Yeah.
team members are doing their tasks. Everything is working quite well in terms of our like fulfilling our goals and fulfilling our to-do list for our organization. But then, what am I doing for ensuring the well-being of my people? For
Exactly.
ensuring that I'm going to that essence of the community where people actually enjoy talking to each other. So at that point in time, I was getting quite agonized and I was getting quite anxious because people were just completing their task, and they were not feeling bonded to the community. So what I did was I started another department in Empower, which is known as Interaction Department. Like, it's just like the key lies in its name, interaction. So
Mhm.
I appointed 2 3 members for the department, and I gave the leading task to one of the very enthusiastic team members. And I generally guide the heads of each and every department, and their task is to ensure that every 15 days they hold a meeting with every department, which includes game sessions at night, or just meditation
Mhm.
sessions. Or now that Christmas is coming, we are trying to work out a Christmas party for our team
Mhm.
members. And just to
Mhm.
hold these nice icebreaker sessions. And even though, like, I understand that team members are busy, like everyone is busy, and especially like students these days are busy with internships and studies and this and that. So, like, suppose there are 10 members in any department, perhaps 5 or 4 will attend that interaction, fun, chill meeting. But then I get satisfied that I, as a leader, I am doing something to actually ensure that their well being is kept in check. So,
Mhm.
this is something that we are doing recently to ensure that they're also getting that well-being checked while working at Empower.
That's so important, especially with the pandemic. So many kids and like not even just kids, but people are like close to our age just have been missing out on that social aspect that like the generation before us had in schools and things like that. And so really just making sure that it's definitely going to be in all aspects of life. Just having a safe, chilled, relaxed space is just for fellowship is just so important.
Oh yes, that's really key in creating any community. So now, as we conclude, I would like to ask you this question, and we will just talk about this. According to you, what is the most important thing in community? Like, what is the essence of community for you? Like, for many people, it can be interaction, it can be well-being, it can be a safe space. For someone, it can be discovering your passion while being in the community, or having some really reflective, inspiring conversations. What is that key element for you, which makes the essence of a community?
I think definitely the conversations. I've always been thinking about this question, and a lot of the times it's comes down to safety. It comes to having access to education. It comes to having access to like just connecting with other people. But really, when it's sort of a conglomerate of the three, sort of having a space to safely be able to connect on areas where there was disconnect before, or areas where there was people who didn't necessarily understand or know of people's experiences and things like that. Especially because this is like a cultural awareness brigade, and so it's like a collective of people becoming culturally aware and creating an environment in the school that's culturally aware. Um, the the times where I felt community was so much created was the times when those safe, empowering conversations where people got to know each other beyond the day to day, beyond school, beyond the fact that, oh, we're all going to school in Northeast USA. Well, actually, some kids used to go to school in Pakistan, some kids used to go to school in Spain, some kids used to go to school in Florida. So it's like a different, just understanding where everybody's coming from, and then really bridging those connections and seeing where people have things in common where they didn't even think they had in common. That to me is community.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Like, having these conversations, and just knowing how, as the organization focuses on diversity, like knowing how people can have diverse backgrounds, and still you can have these conversations which are very fruitful, and you can accept and feel the beauty in our diverse, unique backgrounds, and be very accepting towards it. And I think that is key to also ensuring a very inclusive world for the future. For me, community, like I have already stated in my previous answers, but for me, community is also like, for me, community is about these conversations that we have. Like, I wouldn't have had this opportunity to actually come in person. Like, perhaps I would have had in the future, but not right now during this pandemic, to actually come in person and to talk to you and have a conversation about creating communities. But having created this platform where I can help any two young people connect with each other. So now here it's me and you from two different parts of the world. And it can be anyone who just wants to talk about something which they're really passionate about, and sharing their passion and getting their ideas shared with each other so that we can create a better, more accepting, and sustainable world for the future. I think that is community for me.
That's amazing. And you know what's so crazy to me, and I keep thinking about, is the fact that we have Zoom and the fact that we have these platforms where now more than ever we can create these virtual spaces that sort of like transcend international borders, that transcend like the oceans and the seas. The like I recently have been working on some senior research, and in the research I had to do a survey, and I'd sent it out to like a bunch of friends from YYGS and things like that. And I looking at it, there were like over 200 responses, and yet 30% were international, just because of the fact that we had Zoom and because of the fact that we were able to use those things. And I think to myself, Zoom has become such a leveler. It can be both intentional and unintentional, but you can really have a seat at the table in a way that you've never been able to do before. And just being able to have your camera on and see people's faces, because when you're sitting at a regular table in person, you know, you can't see everybody's faces through peripheral vision, but now you see everybody's faces, you see everybody's like, you know, nodding, things like that. And it's, some people's energies can be so infectious through that, and really just sitting and listening and learning in a way that we've never been able to do before in the room. And I think utilizing that, we can really create those communities that we both
Oh,
are talking.
that's so cool. Like I never realized that when we actually sit on a table, we cannot see everyone's expressions and non-verbal gestures. But now in Zoom, in the realm of Zoom, we can actually surpass these boundaries and get that infectious enthusiasm and passion in our own work, and pass on with other people, and to have these conversations regardless of where we come from, regardless of our backgrounds, because Zoom and this technology is what connects us, even if the pandemic has actually isolated us from almost everything. So, I mean, Ellie, it was a great pleasure talking to you today
It
and
was a
talking
pleasure.
about creating communities. I hope you enjoyed our fourth empowering convo. And till the time, we hope you all gain something from our conversation, and we look forward to other young people initiating these conversations. And we hope to see you soon on the next Saturday. Thank you so much, Aminieli, for joining us
Thank you so
today.
much. Have a good one, everybody, and good luck on those who are taking exams. Have a good one.